The 3 R's. Oh dears, what can the matter be? Dears, dears, what can the matter be? Oh dears, what can the matter be? Revenue so long in despair. More than enough missed opportunities, more than enough missed opportunities, more than enough missed opportunities. Town finances now need repair. Oh dear, what can the matter be? Dears, dears, what can the matter be? Oh dears, what can the matter be? Town revenues so long in despair. They promised to buy us some things that we need. They promised to buy us some things that we need. They promised to buy us some things that we need. But we are still going nowhere. Oh dears, what can the matter be? Dears, dears, what can the matter be? Oh dears, what can the matter be? Revenues so long in despair. They promised an overdue plan of development, promised an overdue plan of development, promised an overdue plan of development, but the plan's not going anywhere. Oh dears, what can the matter be? Dears, dears, what can the matter be? Oh dears, what can the matter be? Revenues so long in despair. We need to reduce, restructure, and reinvest. Need to reduce, restructure, and reinvest. Need to reduce, restructure, and reinvest. The 3 R's will eventually put the matter to rest. Oh dears, what can the matter be? Dears, dears, what can the matter be? Oh dears, what can the matter be? Revenues flat, the 3 R's are long overdue. Oh dears, what can the matter be? Dears, dears, what can the matter be? Oh dears, what can the matter be? The 3 R's must begin right away.
Hello everybody, this is Brian O'Haron. I don't have a regular show anymore, weekly like I did for 5 years or so, but I have been asked by people if I would do a program, this will be repeated in the next couple weeks as well, before the next budget vote, to try to explain to people the predicament that we're in this town, and the predicament we're in Highland Lake, and the predicament we're in with all the businesses in town. We have a real problem. I tried to warn people about this 6 years ago, June of 2006, when I came to front of all the commissions, committees, everything, with a green paper. You can't really see the green here because of the way it works, but it was a green paper addressed to everybody. I'll talk a bit about that tonight. But recently, almost 6 years to the day, June of 2012, I produced a red paper, 2 red papers in fact, a red letter and a red position paper, and read the letter to the selectmen and presented them with the position paper, because there's a lot of problems here over the years, not all caused just in town, but with the recession and all the problems around the world, in Europe and everywhere, and all the problems in America, financial problems, and all the financial problems in our own town, especially the lack of jobs and the lack of the ability of people to pay for a lot of what we would call their needs. So what I'm going to do tonight, I did red papers this time because red is the financial man's indication of red ink. It's red ink. We're about to be in red ink here, and my own view is we already are in red ink. People just don't realize it. We do have a little bit of a different town here than a lot of other places. We have a town with a lake and with the lovely area of Winchester, and then we have the downtown, which is the old factory area, or once inhabited by about 80 factories, according to the history book. And they have a lot of old buildings, a lot of buildings that are in disrepair, a lot of facilities that are in disrepair, town facilities. I did write a song about that 6 years ago, which was The Lament of Caleb Beach, which I played on my programs. Caleb Beach wondering what's happened to his town of Winsted. So I don't have much time tonight. I've only got an hour, and I got a couple papers to read, so I'm going to start reading them now, and I want to leave you with some points before the end of the program. I'll put my glasses on here. I'm a year older than I was last time I saw you, but this goes to the finance board. I'm dealing with the finance board. As you know, in our town, the selectmen are also the finance board. That's kind of sad because some of the people on the finance board, in my opinion, can't add 2 and 2 and get 4. There are a couple on there that can. The fiscal conservatives are usually pretty good because they run businesses and they have to deal with money all the time. Some of the educators and other people on the board aren't quite as used to doing that except in their own personal life, and I don't know anything about their own personal expenses or the way they control their money. But anyway, I'll read you the letter I wrote. It's a red paper. I hope you can see the red. There it is. Red in the finance world means danger, and there's a difference between black ink, which is positive, and red ink, which is negative, and we're rapidly heading in that direction. So this letter was delivered a couple weeks ago on 6/18/2012, and it's entitled, Dear Board Members, if early indications are correct, the initial results of the ongoing town property revaluations, we're going through a revaluation now, in October, may show roughly an average of 45% or so decrease in appraised downtown, that's non-lake and Winchester property, 45% decrease, and that's just a rough estimate now based upon information available to people who did the numbers here. A 6% or so decline at Highland Lake, pretty well held its values over the last 5 years. Town's gone down about an average of 45%, maybe plus or minus a bit when we get the final numbers in December, October to December time frame. And this will affect us next year in the 2013-2014 budget, and I'll talk a bit about that in this letter. So Highland Lake pretty well held its values, down about 6% or so. Town down 45%, and a 26%, give or take, decrease in Winchester property values out in the Winchester area. The results could be different. I hope so. But if not, the town could have many serious problems with future financial matters and budgeting. If true, it will raise the lake percentage of the taxes from about 25% of the town money budget to about 35% of the town budget. That's a huge, huge increase. This will make it financially difficult for many lake taxpayers to sell their homes, possibly increase foreclosures and short sales around the lake, and eventually decrease values of lake and town property and kill a goose that presently lays a golden egg. If true, it will be very difficult for the town to pass budgets with financial increases or perhaps even small decreases. The lake and other taxpayers will be forced to unite, as they already are doing, and scrutinize budget proposals very closely, much more closely than they have in the past, before voting yes for a budget that doesn't have a substantial decrease. Never mind zero budget, but decreased budgets. There's a long list of reasons why it has been difficult to consistently pass increases in budgets in Winsted. One of the main reasons, I believe, has been our inability to consistently grow the profitable portions of the recurring tax base and gain the confidence of the taxpayers that their management is financially able and sound. Distrust in the financial board's financial management capability abounds in Winsted, Winchester, and at Highland Lake. Nobody trusts that their money is being managed in a responsible way. In my 2006 Green Paper, the first 5 pages of the first letter are attached to the red paper I gave them. I explained the possibility of a good deal of additional profitable recurring tax revenue for the town and suggested ways to use it to the advantage of the community. That opportunity may be long gone, or at best crippled by events over the last 6 years at the state, federal, and town levels. The profitable portions of the tax base have not grown, but the town's financial needs, even during the recession, and desires have continued to grow for various reasons. We're strongly unionized in our area, and there's a lot of bargaining that happens, and we often give increases to people without really knowing where we're going to get the money to pay for them because we don't have that additional profitable recurring tax revenue growing in our town for many years. Recently, despite the financial condition of many, everyone wants everything. They want a new school. Maybe talking about $40–50 million there, including interest. A big bond package, about $12 million. The last number I knew, and it could be more or less now. Maybe it's growing. To do the roads and the infrastructure needs that we have. And large tax increases. I mean, they just try to get out, started out thinking about 12% tax increase. They finally went down to 8.4%. Now they're down to 5%. My guess is, from what I hear around town and around the lake, they probably won't get that 5%. Be beaten back because people just can't afford it. And they don't think the money is being spent wisely, especially the 65% of the budget that goes to the schools. That's the biggest question mark. 65% of the budget, give or take a couple percent, goes to education. And unfortunately, I'm not reading the letter now, I'm talking to you, but we don't have the best grades either. We'll talk a bit maybe more if I have time towards the end of the program. We're down at the bottom. We're in the bottom 30% when it comes to that. Matter of fact, we're going to get a grant for 5 years of $250,000 or so to help us. But once that 5 years is up, we'll be paying that out of our own pockets, and that just increases our minimum budget requirement for the schools, which is a very, very controversial situation. Wherever you get government involved in helping to manage and giving you money, then you're not in control anymore. They're in control, and that's part of our problem that we have now. I believe that we must change our approach, I'm back to the letter, and begin planning the 2013-2014 budget immediately, as it may be a tough budget year, and it will take time to get a responsible budget that will pass as a budget referendum during perhaps the most difficult of financial times. There's a reason, this is Brian speaking again, not reading from the letter, I'm just giving a comment. There's a reason why you get all these zero budgets that the selectmen don't like. It's because people can't afford it. They don't think the money's being spent wisely. And until they're convinced of that, and just about whenever we think we got them convinced, we give the new superintendent, say, 13% increase. He's been here about a year, and he was never a superintendent before he came here. So, and we have a lot of problems in the school system where we're changing personnel, financial managers come and go, we can't get audits done, we don't know if the facts are there. They're even now considering setting up some kind of a commission to look into the costs over there. Nobody trusts even that, and 12 people to go in and find out whether we're spending our money properly or not. It's probably not the best way to do it, but that's just another delaying tactic. The results of that, by the way, will come in the day before the budget referendum, so that gets everybody laughing right there, and distrustful. And, you know, we're trying to build trust here, not break it down. So I'll just say, back to the letter, I believe that we must change our approach and begin planning the 2013-14 budget, that's the following year, immediately, as it may have a tough budget year, and it will take time to get a responsible budget that will pass the budget referendum during perhaps the most difficult of financial times. Bernanke is saying, he's the head of the Fed, he's saying we may be at 8% unemployment for another 8-10 years. In the last few weeks, he's been saying that, for a lot of reasons, which I won't go into here. So it could get worse over the next 5 years for our town. Attached, I have outlined in a red paper an approach to managing the finances of the town by creating 5-year objectives. That's called management by objectives. You can learn that if you go to Harvard Business School. You learn that. Matter of fact, most business schools. And management by exception, MBO. Management by objectives is MBO. Management by exception is MBE. I got a little mistake in the letter there. Together with the use of quarterly reviews. You set the objectives. I'll go through some of those when I read the next paper. And then you measure every 3 months. And if the management of the town manager, isn't performing, you're not meeting your objectives, then he gets penalized. If he is usually financially penalized, may lose his job. If he's making them, he gets rewarded. He may get an increase. And if that increase could be proportional to the amount of taxes he can bring in for us, additional profitable recurring revenue, then that's even better. So together with the use of quarterly reviews, now I also throw in some thinking approaches that are very important, and I do define them in the actual plan. I might read some of them if I have time. They laugh, especially Selectman Perez, when I mention to him in meetings over the 5 years. He laughs when I bring up these things, but positive thinking is very important. Got to think positively. You have to use lateral thinking, or as some people say in America, out-of-the-box thinking. Parallel thinking is very important. It's everybody working towards the same goal, even though they have different opinions and different ideas. They don't sit at meetings fighting all the time. And I have a definition of that in the paper. I hope to get to be able to read it to you. If not, you can pick it up in the town hall. The green paper, red papers and the green papers are in the town hall, town clerk's office. You can go get them, read them, make up your own mind. And then system thinking. They're all very important. All of these techniques are commonly used by successful business management. This should be possible by using existing personnel and reallocating budget money with the taxpayer's permission where necessary. This approach would direct the town manager under the direction of the finance board, which has a certain amount of control over their bottom line when not interfered with by the government's minimum budget requirement, which is always. And they can't go in and manipulate the lines in the budget of the Board of Education. They can only cut or add to the bottom line. And they have to be careful when they do that, because then it might become part of the minimum budget requirement that has to be repeated the following year. So this approach would direct the town manager under the direction of the finance board to construct and manage the execution of the plan. If the charter allows, that's very important, it might not. Otherwise, urgently change the town charter to allow. We may be in the position here, and I've always thought this, that the town charter is holding us back too. You know, things evolve, things change. The last administration voted to give the town finance director more ability to review what's going on in the Board of Education, but he has to have their permission to do it. And, you know, their position, you know, they don't want him looking at their numbers. They don't want to be sharing computers and sharing databases. They don't want him to know what's going on over there, in my opinion. The town manager will need small reallocations to the budget within the approval authority of the Board of Finance. If it's not within their approval authority, in their approval authority, they have to go to the taxpayers. And usually that's for anything over $15,000 one way or another, with certain exceptions that the charter allows. The town manager must be held accountable for success or failure of the plan. That's very important. You know, we really don't need the town manager working on recreational matters and small things like that that could be handled by the rec director. We need them to get into us this additional profitable recurring revenue in town. And I'm also saying in the letter, be sensible about the next submission of the 2012-2013 budget, as any increase may be difficult to pass with a revaluation sword of Damocles hanging over the taxpayer and town's head. I can tell you, when those taxes, if they should, end up going up 21% on average, some people at the lake will be getting 30-40% increases. Others will be getting a little bit less than 21% average, because that's how you get an average. But it's really going to wake everybody up there, and they're going to say, what are we getting for our money? And by the way, the people at the lake, most of them, not all, but most of them have some experience in running a business and dealing with money, currency. But sometimes they need to be woken up. They got a life outside of Winsted, 60% of them, and they don't pay much attention until things get to the point where they feel they have to get involved. And right now, before I start reading the next red paper, I want to tell you that I started to tell you that we're a little different as a town because we have a lake in Winchester and downtown. Torrington, for example, most of the people that would live at the lake or live in Winchester, they live in Litchfield, they live in Goshen, they live in Harlingen, and they're sort of have a different set of circumstances down there as far as raising the mill rate is concerned. So if this mill rate goes up, it goes up for everybody, an average of 21%, and it will affect everybody. Be a lot less business in town because people are paying more taxes. Be harder to sell things. There's a whole list of things that will happen if this goes on. And if it goes on for another 5 years, and it goes and shifts even more to the lake paying 45% instead of 25% and 35%, then you're really going to see some hell break loose around here. And if the values go down, then the town gets less tax money there. So it's working in the opposite direction if that happens. And in trying times, all decisions are difficult, and they take courage. Sincerely, Brian O'Haron, 211 West Wakefield Boulevard, Winston, Connecticut. Now, I didn't read this at the selectmen meeting because I only had 10 minutes. I'll read it here now, and if you want a copy, again, go to the town hall or give me a call, and we'll get you a copy of it. It'll be there for a long, long time. The other one's been in there for 6 years. This will probably be there. I did tell him at the select meeting, I'll see you in 6 years, and I'll be 81 then, and I'll come back to see if you made it or you didn't make it. But anyway, Finance Board, Town Hall, Main Street, Winston, Connecticut. Dear Finance Board members, the problem, the town's fund balance is low, and the voters have just turned down the 8.4% recommended 2012-2013 budget by a 2-to-1 margin. Overwhelming. The taxpayers seem unable to afford the services that the town leaders want or need. Current financial projections and conditions indicate that the town financial condition is more likely to remain the same or deteriorate further for years to come unless something is done. The town must restructure and focus on what is important by increasing the profitable recurring tax base considerably and soon, and or reducing drastically and soon the amount of service to a level that is necessary, predictable, and affordable for a town in our financial condition, and reinvesting in what is important for the future. The 3 R's are restructure, reduce, and reinvest. They may not be in the right order. Maybe it should be reduce, restructure, and reinvest. Of course, I'm hoping we can get a lot of, over time, we can get a lot more profitable, recurring, additional tax revenue in town, but that's not going to happen overnight. We're past that now. If we took the action 6 years ago that we should have with the green paper, then we would not be in wonderful shape now, but we might be in a little better shape, and we might be in a lot better shape in 5 more years once we get through all this recession and everything else. But that opportunity is pretty well gone. Still a possibility, but we can't count on that. My friend Tony Michikowski from Torrington, who was a state representative for 20 years or so, he was a Democrat. He told me many times, and I repeated it on this program, he's just died recently, rest his soul, that it takes about 15 or 20 years to get a Route 8, or to get the lottery in, which he helped do, or to do anything in state government and local government. So I don't expect this revenue to come leaping into the town. But I do expect that we're going to have to face the music, and I'm talking outside the letter now, and we're going to have to attack 65% of our budget, or maybe a little less, 62-3%, where we're allowed to by the state and the town and the feds. We're going to have to try to reduce that number. That's the most obvious place to look. It's the one you have to scrutinize and the one you have to really concentrate on until you're happy that it's balanced. Back to the letter. I am suggesting an approach that may help you to bootstrap yourself out of this condition and succeed. The MBO-MBE approach, management by objectives and management by exception approach, is sorely needed as the town is not driven by focused financial objectives. You can't get our financial objectives for the next 5 years from anybody, including any board, any commission, the selectmen, the finance board, the town manager. Nobody has anything. And where they do have it, they want to hide it. They don't want to show it to you because it isn't very positive. I am suggesting an approach that may help you to bootstrap yourself out of this condition and succeed. The MBO-MBE approach is sorely needed as the town is not driven by focused financial objectives, but by freewheeling input that doesn't produce the balance the town needs to reinvest and restructure. We don't have 80 factories anymore. We don't have as many fires as we used to, although I still think the firemen need to be supported properly, that we need revenue to do that. Crime may be even on an increase with the breakups in the family structures and religious backing we have today. So the approach, back to the letter, the approach. Managing Winsted/Winchester revenue and expense by objectives and exception. Employing the techniques of positive, lateral, parallel, and system thinking. Brief definitions for each of these terms are included in this letter below. Further information is available in libraries or on the internet. The approach must be apolitical, very visible, and accountable to all residents. You see a picture on the screen of our town founders along the way. They're all different. They all had different ideas. But they worked together. They were to be as apolitical as possible, very visible and accountable to all residents, especially taxpayers. They needed the taxpayers to run their factories, their schools, their libraries, and whatever else there was. So see the definition of parallel thinking that I have in this letter. I used these techniques when I wrote my 2006 Green Papers in an attempt to unite the town towards common goals to achieve additional profitable recurring tax revenue that could be used to restructure and reinvest. And in my Green Paper, which I won't have time to read tonight, I don't think, but I did attach to these papers, these red papers, I show if you get in X million dollars, give $1 million to the schools each year. Give $1 million to the town for roads and infrastructure each year, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Give some to Highland Lake each year so they can dredge the lake and they do the things they need to do up there. You know, all lakes die over time unless you take care of them. We have some problems up there that need to be addressed. So we need a profitable recurring tax revenue that could be used to restructure or reinvest to help cure our financial ills. See the Green Paper attached for my suggestions when and if the money rolls in. At this particular point, I don't think it's going to roll in. It's going to crawl in, if that. Hasn't been doing anything over the last few years. This series of papers was an attempt to make everyone, that's the Green Papers, aware of the opportunity and encourage them to participate by joining in the effort to make things happen for the good of the town. The opportunity was a unique occurrence for a town our size and is probably gone, or very far off now, for several reasons. So we have to construct a much more difficult set of objectives and to replace the revenue and expense numbers used in the Green Paper series of 2006, June 2006, and beyond that, because they're necessary for the 3 R's. I have included as an addendum to the first five pages of the initial Green Paper. The Green Paper was a lot of Green Papers, it was very thick, but I included the first 5 pages here to give them an idea which direction we were going in, or wanted to go in. The remainder of the papers can be obtained in the town clerk's office for those interested. Now, whenever you present an approach like this in the Green Papers, you'll get a small minority of people who find all kinds of criticism with it, mainly because they don't have the experience themselves. But the Green Paper had the support of most people in town, mostly fiscal conservatives from everywhere, any party, any group. And the Taxpayer Association, you know, the Green Paper was presented to all importance commissions, boards, and committees, some of them twice or 3 times, presented to the Taxpayer Association, given to all town managers from 2006 to present, presented to all major political party town committees, presented to Friends of Main Street, given to the Highland Lake Watershed Association, given to all 3 parent-teacher organizations that never responded, presented to the taxpayers over the years by my Channel 13 programs, Planning for Success and Getting Things Done. The information in this paper is not meant to be all-inclusive, but is intended to whet your appetite and encourage you to look further into the suggestions. All numbers are just examples to make the points. It will take some work and judgment to construct the objectives and timescales. This is a hard plan to put together, especially in Winsted. It's going to be tough. We tend not to manage this way, but we need to manage this way, or we won't achieve the results. We can't wait for a bluebird to fly in. We got to go out and find that bluebird and help them find our town. That's what needs to happen, and we need many bluebirds. So, okay, here we go. Here's an example of what I think we need to do, and the numbers are just examples. The town manager and the finance board, they can come up with some different ones, whatever they think they need to run the town. But it's a 5-year plan. Year 1, let's plan, let's target getting a plus $500,000 more recurring additional profitable tax revenue into the town, one way or another. The expenses will target to hold at 0% increase, and the fund balance at 0% increase, because that's probably what's achievable the first year. The second year of the plan, let's try to get an additional $750,000 in town. And let's increase our expenses by $200,000, and let's put $100,000 into the fund balance, should we achieve the objectives. Year 3, revenue plus $1 million. Give us 3 years of time, maybe we can get somebody who's that big. The expense, $300,000, be increased, and the fund balance, another $200,000. Year 4, $1 million, expense plus $500,000, we're spending more now because we're getting more in, and the fund balance, put in $300,000 if you achieve the objectives for that year. Year 5, revenue plus $1 million, expense plus $500,000, and increase the fund balance by $300,000. So what you'll have then at the end of 5 years, if you achieve that kind of a schedule, you'll have less if you have an easier schedule, you'll have more if you have a tougher schedule and you meet the schedules. Total 5-year revenue will be an increase of $4,250,000. And expenses will be increased by $1,500,000. And the fund balance by $900,000. And that's just by the additional profitable recurring tax revenue, not from existing taxpayers. So each year must be broken down into sub-objectives and critical paths for each additional revenue or expense possibility. Software tools are available to help. I used to use Critical Path Method, CPM, and PERT, P-E-R-T, as far back as 45 years ago. The high school or college kids may be able to help with the computer tools. I checked with my son, who has a master's in business and finance, and he says they still exist, and there are more tools you can use now on the internet. So the tools are there. You can probably get the kids to do it for almost nothing, for experience and for maybe some credits at school. You don't need to go out and hire expensive consultants for this kind of thing. Okay, so step 1 would be determine, as a Board of Finance, the statement of the problem. You got to face the problem. If you don't face the problem and deal with it, you're not going to win. Somebody tells you you're going to die if you don't start smoking in 6 months, you better stop smoking. Because not everybody will die in 6 months, but a lot will. And you don't want to be one of them. Determine the Board of Finance, the statement of the problem, for example, and produce an affirmative declaration that neither current levels of community service nor hope for improvements in community service are financially possible based on the current tax base. That's a tough decision for these people. And they'll usually try to avoid it for political reasons, so they'll get reelected again. But for business reasons, the Finance Board cannot overlook this. They've got to face the problem and put together a plan to solve it. So step 2, the Finance Board or Board of Selectmen should appoint the town manager responsible for coordinating and the definitions of the objectives, i.e. what numbers do we put in which column for each year, and for making them happen. I call that planning for success and getting things done. So do a lot of people in the world. And he'll do it reporting directly to the Finance Board. Finance Board is critical in this town, even though they're not all qualified, in my opinion, to be on there. You can elect anybody to be on there. Doesn't mean they can add or subtract. The town manager must delegate most of his day-to-day responsibilities to his subordinates and staff. Some charter interpretation and perhaps change may be necessary here to accomplish this approach. But let's hope not, as it may lead to an early financial demise and perhaps bankruptcy for our town. if not accomplished with a great sense of urgency. The 3 R's are at stake. Number 3, have the Finance Board agree to free up a small amount of dollars from time to time as needed for advertising and other small expenses by reallocating money from the current and future budgets when and where necessary. See some examples attached. Grants and other transfers of money that do not add additional profitable recurring tax revenue do not count towards the revenue goals because they're not recurring. The town manager collects input, the town manager produces the financial objectives to be agreed by the Finance Board and reports progress quarterly to the Finance Board by exception. That's called management by exception. Dates for these reviews should be announced at the beginning of each fiscal year and measured at the end of each fiscal year. What are we going to do? Did we do it? But along the way, you have quarterly reviews, and then that's where you change direction, move a little faster, move a little slower, make decisions that are necessary quarterly. Some might be pretty tough decisions. So the town manager produces the financial objectives to be agreed by the Finance Board and reports progress quarterly to the Finance Board by exception. Dates for these reviews should be announced at the beginning of each fiscal year and measured at the end of the fiscal year. The town manager should be rewarded for success and penalized for failure. That's called results orientation. You get to keep the job if you do a good job. You get to lose the job if you don't do a good job. But if you're doing a good job and it looks like you're going to make it and it looks like you're trying your best, then everybody will try to help you. But you could really try your best and look like you're doing a good job. But if you're not producing the results, we're not making those numbers, then the town will suffer. The town manager collects input from various commissions and committees and the board chair persons as necessary. You've got to be careful not to get bogged down in that, but that's important. All town stakeholders are to be kept informed and encouraged to participate by suggesting ideas, as I did in my green paper, and begin thinking positive about town when difficult decisions are made. That's called parallel thinking. I define this in my paper. It's a term that was coined by a friend of mine, Dr. Edward de Bono of Cambridge University. I talked about it on my programs in England. Use attractive incentives to make things happen, not expensive overheads like planning managers, expense consultants, etc. In a normal environment, I don't have a problem with that. But this is not a normal environment. We've hired managers, consultants, all kinds of things, and it hasn't helped us at all. So consider using displays like the United Way does each year to promote awareness of this and progress and lack of progress, and encourage participation of everyone in this town, no matter which party they're in, or affiliation, or religion, or school, or anything else. They should all be trying to pull the oars in the right direction. Now I have the rest of the paper's definitions. I'll go through a few of these, not too many, but you got it just to give you an idea. Lateral thinking was introduced. Well, let's start with positive thinking. Positive thinking is optimism, the belief that objectives are challenging but realistic and can be achievable once determined. And everyone should be looking for positive ways to resolve problems presented while trying to achieve the objectives and improve them. Parallel thinking will help here too. Lateral thinking, that was introduced and explained by my friend college professor Dr. Edward de Bono in 1967 in his book, Lateral Thinking. Lateral thinking is concerned with the perception part of thinking. This is where we organize the external world into the pieces we can then process and do so. Then I've got a definition of parallel thinking, another de Bono introduction. By the way, lateral thinking is called in America more thinking out of the box, same thing, so you can see that. Management by objectives definition, that's Peter Drucker, wrote the book Practice of Management, 1954. And management by exception is a concept where management doesn't get too much involved unless they're needed for decision making, et cetera, et cetera. We should be customer driven. We should have additional recurring profit revenue. I define that. Financial incentives should be based upon success. There should be no waiting. We're waiting for this. We're waiting for the POCD. We're waiting for the reg changes. None of that. You go out and find the customers. That's called customer driven. Then you get things changed to accommodate them to come to our town, provide jobs, and pay additional recurring profitable tax to us. So we can then prosper and we can all enjoy our town much more than we are financially now. And business as usual. Business as usual is liquor store in, liquor store out, pizza place in, pizza place out. That doesn't really count. That doesn't really add, unless the new one pays a lot more taxes than the old one. Then it counts. So that's that. Now in the last couple of minutes I want to show a couple slides that I have. The first one is some points I'm just trying to drive home tonight. So if we can put that up on the screen, there we go. I'll just read it right there. Key points to remember. The revaluation is in progress to apply in the budget for 2013 and 2014. And of course, it will be there for budgets beyond until something changes in 5 years when they do another one. Well, probably a 21% average mill rate increase, some higher, some lower. The lake and personal property are hit hard financially, and maybe even some of Winchester. Personal property, that is going by the present mill rate. As soon as we get the increase, they'll be hit an average of 21% there too, one way or another. The lake will go from 25 to 35%, and we hope that in the next 5 years it won't go to 45%, because that would be a disaster for our town and our people. Severe financial overall repercussions are most likely. Whenever you raise something by an average of 21%, then everything else suffers. Local business suffers, although a lot of people don't even shop here now. Everything, you know, people get haircuts once every 2 months instead of every month. They don't go to these nail polishing places anymore, et cetera, et cetera. They don't go out to eat, all that kind of thing. And the possibility of another drop in another 5 years is still real, and it might happen. And now I'm going to just show one more slide, and then I'll end the program, and that is that you should watch Efficient, Effective, Affordable, and Accountable to You. That's a program that's hosted by James Roberts. He often has John Gauger on, who's a former Democratic town party chairman. He's also a former mayor and a former selectman, and he used to be the head of the Taxpayers Association. So he has a big, long background in our town, and he's very numerate, and he does a lot of homework, and he works with James on this kind of thing. So it's on at 7 p.m. on Wednesdays and repeated at 3 p.m. on Saturdays. When it's slow time, they might even repeat it the following week, the same programs. It's on Channel 13. And the ones that are important for this next budget are July 4 and 7, July 11 and 14, and July 18 and 21. Be sure to tune into them. And you can also see them on the Charter website. They're on there for about 8 weeks, each of the programs, so you can see 8 weeks of history on there. And then James has them on his Facebook page, and he has them on YouTube. So they're accessible. You should watch them. And now I'm just going to close by saying, pay attention to all these budgets. Try to encourage the selectmen to take this kind of an approach to running our financial business. Be vocal, be involved, as Ralph Nader would say, and Brian O'Hearn would say, although we don't always agree on all issues, I do think people should get out there and not just leave it to the squeaky wheel to run our town. We need balance here. We need to get the fiscal conservatives more involved and the people paying the taxes more in control than the Board of Education and other interests. They're important, but the taxpayers have to pay for all this. And there was a day when I was a kid where if you went to a restaurant, you didn't like the meal, you didn't pay for it, and they understood that. So with that, thank you and good night. This program will be repeated for the next 2 weeks. If you want to point anybody to it, it will be on the website of Charter 13. CTV 13. Thank you very much.
The 3 R's. Oh, dears, what can the matter be? Dears, dears, what can the matter be? Oh, dears, what can the matter be? Revenue so long in despair. More than enough missed opportunities, more than enough missed opportunities, more than enough missed opportunities. Town finances now need repair. Oh dear, what can the matter be? Dears, dears, what can the matter be? Oh dears, what can the matter be? Town revenue so long in despair. They promised to buy us some things that we need. They promised to buy us some things that we need. They promised to buy us some things that we need. But we are still going nowhere. Oh dears, what can the matter be? Dears, dears, what can the matter be? Oh dears, what can the matter be? Revenue so long in despair. They promised an overdue plan of development, promised an overdue plan of development, promised an overdue plan of development, but the plan's not going anywhere. Oh dears, what can the matter be? Dears, dears, what can the matter be? Oh dears, what can the matter be? Revenue so long in despair. We need to reduce, restructure, and reinvest. Need to reduce, restructure, and reinvest. Need to reduce, restructure, and reinvest. The 3 R's will eventually put the matter to rest. Oh dears, what can the matter be? Dears, dears, what can the matter be? Oh dears, what can the matter be? Revenue's flat, the 3 R's are long overdue. Oh dears, what can the matter be? Dears, dears, what can the matter be? Oh dears, what can the matter be? The 3 R's must begin right away.